If GED or HiSET math is standing in the way of you moving ahead, then you're in the right place, because I made this video to help you pass GED or HiSET math as fast as possible so that you can move ahead to bigger and better things in life like college or a better job, and we're starting right now. Question 1. What are the zeros of the function f of x equals x squared plus 2x minus 24? So let's have you try this question out, and if you get stuck, don't worry about it because we're just going to go over it. So now would be a good time to pause the video and try this out, and then we'll break down how to do it. Okay, so the first thing that I want you to understand here is that this is an example of a quadratic equation. And a quadratic equation is going to look like this. It's going to look like ax squared plus bx plus c. Okay, so if you didn't see that this was a quadratic equation here, you probably didn't get the right answer, and that's okay because we're just practicing for right now. But in this case here, all right, the number in front of x squared is just 1. So a is going to be 1, and our b is going to be 2. Because b comes in front of the x, and here 2 comes in front of the x, all right? And our c is going to be negative 24, because we have to consider the minus sign. All right, so when it comes to factoring, I like to write this little X or diamond type of thing here. I think it's helpful when I'm teaching and helpful for learning. And once you know how to do this, once you know how to factor, all right, you might not have to write this out anymore if you can just remember how to do it. But essentially what we're going to do is, the first thing we have to do is multiply A and B. So we multiply A times B, forget that I said that. It's A times C. All right, we have to multiply A times C, and then whatever that number equals, whatever A times C equals, we have to find two numbers that multiply together to give us that, but they have to add up to B. All right, so what is A times C here? Well, we have 1x squared, so we have 1 times negative 24, which is just negative 24. So if I do A times C, I get negative 24. Now, what's my B going to be? Well, I can simply look right before the x and see that that number is 2. So I simply put a 2 down here. So all I have to do is find two numbers that multiply together to give me negative 24, but they have to add up to be 2. Okay, so one way to do this would be to just start by listing things that you can think of that will multiply together to give you negative 24. All right, so what about negative 6 and 4? Well, negative 6 times 4, and you're welcome to use your calculator to figure this out if you want. Negative 6 times 4 is going to give us negative 24, which is what we need. But then if I add them, if I do negative 6 plus 4, all right, I am not going to get 2. Okay, negative 6 plus 4 does not equal 2, so this is not going to be the pair that I want to use here. But what if I try it this way? What if I try 6 and negative 4? Okay, well, 6 times negative 4 gives me negative 24, which is perfect. But if I do 6 plus negative 4, that's really the same as just doing 6 minus 4. 6 minus 4 equals 2. So this is the pair that I want to start with here. So if you thought that C, if you got this far into the question, and you thought that C was the right answer, I want you to know that you did a really good job by figuring this step out right here, and you were on the right track, but we have to take this another step forward here, all right? We're not done. So this is only we're only partway through the question at this point. So if you did get C, know that that's not completely correct, but I still want to give you credit for figuring this out, all right? But what we have to do is, and you can write 6 here, and you can put negative 4 here, but we have to do this. We have to do x plus 6 equals 0. And we have to solve this for x. Because what we're trying to do is, like it says up here, what are the zeros of the function? So once you figure out the two numbers, 6 and negative 4, you have to do x plus 6 equals 0, and you have to figure out what x is. So if I have x plus 6, I have to subtract 6 on both sides of the question, or on both sides of the equation. All right, so positive 6 minus 6 cancels out. And 0 minus 6 is just negative 6. So one of the answers would be x equals negative 6. And also, then we have to do the same with this negative 4. So then I have to set it up like this. X minus 4 equals 0. And to solve this for x, all I do is simply add 4 to both sides of the question. All right, and if I do that, I'll see that x equals 4. All right, so the zeros of the function are x equals 4 and x equals -6. So B is the correct answer here. And if you haven't really studied factoring yet for your test, then you might have had trouble with this question, which is okay. Know that I have a video where I break down tons of examples, really just overkill the amount of examples in that video, but it's a really good video to watch. I'll try to remember to link it down below. If I forget, just please comment down below and remind me, because I often forget. But that's a good video to watch if you had trouble with factoring. What is the sum of 5x squared plus 3x minus 7 and 12x plus 12? So now would be a good time if you want to pause the video, give this question a shot, and if you get stuck, don't worry about it. We're all about the learning and the process right now, so whether you get it right or wrong is not important while we're practicing. Okay, hopefully you had a chance to try this out if you wanted to. So basically, the idea here is we have to work with like terms, okay? And so this is a really, really important skill to master for both the GED and the HiSET, all right? So we have to work with like terms. So first, hopefully, we have to understand what we can and can't add. So I like to take this question and just for instructional purposes, I'm going to stack these two pieces here on top of each other. All right. Now, if you want to, you can. If you're doing a test and you get a question like this, you could rewrite them one on top of the other on your scratch pad if you want to. Okay. But that also might just take up too much time. But so note that I'm just doing this so we can visualize this for instructional purposes. So when I write these two pieces here, one on top of the other, all right, I want to line it up so that my terms are going to match. And you might be thinking, Parker, what do you mean by terms, like terms? You've said this a couple times now, I don't get it. Well, let me explain it. All right, so if we have 5x squared, we cannot add 12x to that. Okay, they don't have like terms. This is an x squared. This is only an x. Now, if this was 12x squared, yeah, then we would do 5 plus 12 and pull the x squared along for the ride. But that's not the case here, all right? So the 5x squared is just going to get a free ride right down, all right? When I add these up, 5x squared, I'm just going to pull that right down, all right? Because you can't add that to anything here. Now, the 3x and the 12x, that's going to give me 15. If you do 3 plus 12, that's 15, and we just pull the x's down for the ride here, all right? So x plus x does not give us x squared. We're just adding the numbers up, 3 and 12, and pulling that x down for the ride. Now, with my -7 and 12, all right, -7 plus 12 is the same, really, as doing 12 minus 7, which gives us 5. And you're more than welcome to use your calculator for any of these questions unless I tell you otherwise. It's specifically a no calculator question. So the answer here should be A, 5x squared plus 15x plus 5. All right, so the main thing here was just understanding what you can and can't add. For example, you can't add 5x squared and 3x. You also can't add -7 to 5x or something like that, all right, to 5x squared or something like that. So A is the right answer here. So great work if you got that. Aisha has a $100 saved from her job. She wants to buy as many charms for her bracelet as $4 each and earrings at $5 per set as she can without spending all of her money. The inequality represents her spending, where X is the number of charms and Y is the number of sets of earrings. Which ordered pair, parenthesis X, Y, parenthesis, represents a combination of charms and earrings Aisha can buy? Is it A, B, C, D, or E? So now's the part of the video where you can pause it and you can try this out for yourself, and then we'll go over the solution here. Okay, so basically what we have to do here is we have to understand that in each of these pairs, in A, B, C, and D, the first number is going to be something that we can plug in for X, and the second numbers here we can plug in for Y. So the strategy that jumps out to me for this question is just kind of guess and check here, right? So we're going to take this and let's try answer choice A. And in place of the X here, I'm going to write in 16. And in place of the Y, I want to put 8. So I'm going to crunch the numbers here in my calculator, and if the answer comes out something greater than 100, we know that this answer choice can't be the right answer. So if I do 4 times 16 plus 5 times 8, All right, I get 104. So this cannot be the correct answer. All right, so let's take answer choice A out of the picture here. All right, so what about B here? So for B, I would just do 4 times 15 this time, plus 5 times 8. And this time, we're going to see what this equals. All right, so we crunch the numbers here, 4 times 15 plus 5 times 8. Okay, I get exactly 100, but we need something that's less than 100, so that's not going to be the right answer here. All right, so B is out. All right, now what about C? So for C, I would do 4 times 9 plus 5 times 13. Okay, and let me crunch the numbers here and see what we get. And hopefully you're understanding the strategy here for this question that I'm teaching. And so I get, for this one, I get 101. All right, so that's also going to be too high. Okay, now let's test D. So for D, this time, rather than rewriting this, all right, all I'm going to do is I'm going to do 4 times 6 plus 5 times 15 in order to test answer choice D. All right, so hopefully you understand why I'm doing these calculations. And so what I get when I do this is I get 99. So for D, I get 99. So D looks like it's going to be the winner, but let's just test E just to see what it is. So I guess I will write it out here. 4 times 5 plus 16, or yeah, 4 times 5 plus 5 times 16. So let's test this and let's see what I get. So 4 times 5 plus 5 times 16. I get exactly 100, which is not what we want here, because remember, all it says here is that we're trying to find, she wants to see what she can buy without spending all of her money, all right? And she only has $100, so she doesn't want to spend that full 100, but she's okay going up to 99. So in that case, D is the correct answer here, okay? And this is a good real-world application of an inequality type of question. So this first champion shoutout goes to Viper0, who is taking math for the second time, as many people are, and it can be really discouraging when things don't go so well on your first try, and when you have to retake, it can be really frustrating. So we want to wish Viper0 the best of luck here, and everyone else who is retaking, we want to wish you the best of luck too if you're watching this right now. So the second champion shoutout for this video goes to Melodies of Life, who I want to congratulate for passing all 4 sections of the GED test in 5 days, which is really fast. And now, most people, it's going to take quite a bit longer than 5 days. It could take several months, it could take a year. Everybody's different here, but I just wanted to show you an example of what's possible in someone who passed the test super fast. Which of the following graphs represents the relationship between x and y if y always increases as x increases? So let's have you pause the video, try to figure this out, and then when you're ready, we'll go over how to do it. Okay, so this, really to get this question right, you really kind of have to understand what's going on with as far as reading graphs. So let me just pick case 2 as an example here. All right, so let me kind of redraw that line on case 2. So I know this doesn't look exactly like this line right here, but just pretend it does. So the way I like to teach reading graphs is to have people to imagine a little stick figure person. And if the stick figure person started all the way at the left on the start of the line, which is right here, and if that person were to walk and just follow the direction of the line, okay, which way would that person be going, all right? Would that person be going down or up? And in this case, we see that if the person started all the way at the leftmost part of the line and just went for a walk, all right, they would essentially fall down the hill. All right, so we want to know in which case is x and y. It says, which case represents the relationship between x and y if y always increases as x increases. So in this case right here, we don't even see an increase, we just see a big decrease. Okay, so that's why 2 is out. All right, so any answer choice that has 2, which would be E, is going to be false. Okay, so now let's look at number 3 right here. Okay, so let me again try to redraw that graph that I see in 3 a little bit bigger here so we can see it. And I know it doesn't exactly match 3, all right, but just pretend it does. Now, let me draw my little stick figure person, and again, we're going to have the stick figure person start at the leftmost part of the graph. All right, so we're going to have the person start here, okay? And if the person just goes for a walk, all right, what's going to happen? Well, it looks like this person right here, all right, they're not going up, they're not going down, they're just walking on a flat surface here. And then once they get to this part here, then they're going to be going upwards. All right, if the person just goes for a walk, they'll be walking on a flat surface and then they'll be going up. Okay, but 3 is not the right answer here because at this portion of the graph right here, okay, we see that x is increasing, but y is not increasing. Okay, y is staying exactly the same. So at this level right here, again, y is exactly the same, all right, but x is increasing, okay? And the way that you can tell this is just imagine if we put some numbers to this, all right? And see, my philosophy on teaching with the GED and really anything in life is that, you know, I'd rather you have more information than you need than have less. I mean, some people watch my videos and they don't like it. They say, oh, you explain too much. They don't want me to give like a little mini lesson on each question. But, you know, honestly, I would rather give you more information than you need than not give you enough information. At least that's my philosophy. So if we just imagine that we've got, you know, a real graph right here with numbers to it, okay, what you need to know here, and this is important for a lot of questions on the test to understand this, is that, all right, the horizontal part, all right, is always the x, all right? The x coordinates are always going along the horizontal part here. So x is always going to be a number here on this horizontal axis. The vertical axis is the axis that goes up and down. Okay, so if we draw this line here, we put numbers to it, okay, what we would see is that this entire line right here, we see on the x-axis, we see the line goes from, and let's say 0 is right here, it goes from 0 to 1 to 2 to 3, all right, on the x-axis. So in other words, the x's are going up, so x is going to be increasing. But the y value is stuck at 1 this whole entire time. So as the x is going from 0 to 1 to 2 to 3, in other words, as x increases here, y stays exactly the same. Now, at this part of the graph right here, once it starts going upwards, we see y is going to go from 1 to 2 to 3, and so on, right? And x is also going to go from 3 to 4, all right? But, so at this part of the graph here, once the line shoots up, the x's and y's are both increasing. But at this flat portion right here, it's just the x that's increasing, all right? Not the y. So 3 is eliminated. Okay, which leaves us with 1 and 4, all right? So in both of these cases right here, we're going to see, we see that, all right, x and y are both increasing, right, at the same time. And again, you can take a straight line like this and, you know, imagine a person starting at the leftmost portion right here. And we see that the line, the whole time, if that person starts down here at the leftmost portion and just follows the line, we see the whole time everything is increasing, all right? So everything is going up. Okay, and it's the same thing over here. I mean, we have this little kind of kink in the graph here, but that doesn't affect anything. It doesn't change anything because it's still increased. They're both increasing, and they both keep increasing right here. All right, so A is the correct answer here. All right, so hopefully this all makes sense.
A restaurant is at 75% capacity with 120 patrons. How many people are in the restaurant when it is at 100% capacity? So now would be a good time to pause the video and try to figure this out, and then when you're ready, we'll go over how to do this question. So let me have you try that now. Okay, hopefully you had a chance to pause the video and try this out. So this is an example of a percent question, and there are different ways to look at these questions, as is the case with many types of questions on your test. But the formula that you can rely on is the part over the whole equals the percent over 100. All right, so basically, in this case here, we're told that the restaurant at 75% capacity has 120 people. So in this formula, I'm going to take the 75 and I'm going to plug it into the formula in place of this percent sign because it says 75%. All right, now it tells us that at 75%, there's 120 people in the restaurant. So at 100%, we can assume that there's going to be more people, right? So the part is going to be the 120, and the whole is what we're trying to figure out, okay? So again, How many people are in the restaurant when it's at 100% capacity? Well, if it's 100% full, logically and common sense says that there has to be more people than when it's at 75%. All right. So when it's at 100% capacity, the whole thing is full. All right. So the number that we are trying to figure out is the whole. We don't know what that is. So I'm going to just take an x and I'm going to put an x into the formula for the whole because that's what we're trying to figure out here. All right. 100% capacity means the whole thing is filled. All right. That's what we're trying to find. So I'm going to put an x in the formula in place of the whole. And like I said, at 75%, only part of it's full. So I'm going to put 120 in here for a part. All right. So if I rewrite this, I have 120 divided by x equals 75 over 100. All right, so hopefully it makes sense how I got this far. Okay, and so what we want to do now is we want to solve this equation for x. Okay, and there's a couple different ways to do this. There's not just one way to do this, but the first move I want to make is I want to multiply by x on both sides. All right, like I said, there's different orders you can do these steps in. Okay, so if I multiply by x on both sides of the equation, these x's are going to cancel out. All right, and I'm going to have 120 equals 75x over 100. Okay. So all I did was I want to get this x out of the denominator of the fraction and get it upstairs here into the numerator because it's going to make it easier to work with. All right. So now I have 75 times x divided by 100. So if I have 75 times x, to get rid of that 75, I could divide by 75. All right, 75 divided by 75 is just 1. 1 times x is just x. Okay, so whatever I do to one side, I also have to do to the other. So I would know that I have to divide 120 by 75. All right, and on this side, so the 75s have canceled out on the right-hand side, but now I still have x divided by 100. So if I want to get rid of that 100, I have to multiply by 100, and that is going to cause the 100s to cancel out on this side. But you guessed it, whatever I do to one side, I also have to do it to the other. So in my calculator, I'm going to be, when I crunch the numbers, I'm going to do 100 times 120. I'm going to divide by 75, and that's going to give me 160. All right, so C is the correct answer here. I understand that there are multiple ways to approach this question here, but the way I showed right here, this is how you do it this way, and C is the correct answer. So regardless of how you did the question, hopefully you got C. Several students are going to ride their bikes from the city park to Lake Kaygonza. I don't know if that's a real lake or not, or even how to pronounce it, but they're riding to the lake at a distance, and it's a distance of 25 miles. They will ride at an average rate of 10 miles per hour. What is the latest time they can leave the park in order to arrive at the lake by 11 a.m.? So let's have you pause the video, try to figure this out, and then when you're ready, we'll go over how to do this question. Okay, so the formula that I recommend you use for this question is D equals RT, where D stands for distance, R stands for rate, and T stands for time. In other words, distance equals rate times time. So the first thing we want to do is we want to just take stock of what we have here. So they tell us a distance of 25 miles. So if you had to guess here, whether or not you knew how to do this question, if you had to guess, what would I plug into the formula for D? Well, it tells us a distance of 25 miles, so hopefully you guessed that we were going to plug in 25 in place of D. All right, now it tells us then they will ride at an average rate of 10 miles per hour. So again, if you had to guess, what is going to be plugged into this formula for R? What would you guess? Well, hopefully you guessed 10 because it tells us an average rate of 10 miles per hour. So we're going to plug 10 into the formula for R. All right, so we've got 25 equals R times T. So they've given us the distance and they've given us the rate, and what we can do is we can use this information to figure out the time. So if I have 10 times T, I have 10T, or 10 times T, and if I just want to get T by itself, what would I do? Well, since it's 10 times T, I need to do the opposite operation of times, which is division. So I'm going to divide by 10. 10 divided by 10 is just 1. 1 times t is just t. So bingo, we're going to be left with t by itself on the right-hand side of the equation. But remember, whatever you do to one side, you always have to do it to the other. So we're going to have to divide by 10 over here as well. So 25 divided by 10, and I don't care if you use your calculator, that's fair game. 25 divided by 10 is 2.5. So the time is 2.5. All right, so 2.5 hours. And you might say, well, how do I know it's 2.5 hours? Well, if we look back at the rate, it tells us 10 miles per hour. All right, 10 miles per hour. So if I plug in 10 miles per hour, and if I divide that by the distance, and the distance is in miles, time is going to be hours. So I've got 2.5 hours here. Now, 2.5 hours, hopefully you know that 0.5 hours, right? In other words, half of 1 hour is equal to 30 minutes. So this is like 2 hours and 30 minutes. 2.5 hours is the same as 2 hours and 30 minutes. So let's work backwards now from 11 a.m. So at 11 a.m., let's go back 2 hours. So 1 hour, so if we have 11 a.m. right here, all right? We go back 1 hour, that's 10 a.m. We go back 2 hours, that's going to be 9 a.m. And now if we go back half an hour or 30 minutes, that's going to get us to 8:30. Okay? So they would have to leave at 8:30 to get to the lake by 11 a.m. So again, all we did here was we used the distance formula, d equals rt. We took the distance, we plugged it in for d. We took the rate, we plugged it in for r. We divided both sides by 10, which gave us the time. The time was 2.5 hours. Then we knew that we needed to find the latest time they can leave the park to get to the lake by 11 a.m. And we worked backwards. We started at 11. We went 1 hour would be 10. Another hour would be 9. Then 30 minutes would get us to 8:30. And C is the correct answer here. All right, so whether or not you got that right, great work for sticking with the video so far.
Do you want to teach the next question, Tommy? Let's see what you got here. Yeah, I don't think 1 + 1 is really going to cut it, buddy. You're going to have to teach something a little bit harder than that.
Ms. Lund placed a 7-foot ladder against a wall with the base of the ladder 4 feet away from the wall. She decided that a different 10-foot ladder needed to be used. If Ms. Lund wants the longer ladder to rest against the wall at the same angle as the shorter ladder, about how far away from the wall should she place its base? Okay, so let's have you pause the video, give this one your best shot, and don't worry if you get it right or wrong. We're just practicing for right now and increasing our knowledge. So let's have you try to figure this out. Okay, so hopefully you had a chance to try this out. So let me kind of draw out what's happening here. So for a question like this, sketching it out I think is really helpful. So we've got a wall. So let's say that this is a wall and we've got a ladder. And let's say that this is our ladder leaning up against that wall. And in between the base of the ladder right here and the wall is the base, all right? The base of the ladder is right here, the wall is right here. And we're told that there's a 7-foot ladder at first that she uses. So this again is our ladder, and between the base of the ladder and the wall is 4 feet, all right? Now, there's some kind of angle up here between the ladder and the wall, but it doesn't tell us what the angle is, but we don't really care. We just care about the fact that when she wants to use a 10-foot ladder instead of the 7, but she wants to lean it up against the wall so that the angle is exactly the same as when she had the 7-foot ladder. Now, I'm not sure what kind of home improvement project she's doing where she needs the ladder angled at a specific angle, but anyway, she wants to do this basically. So she got the 7-foot ladder, then she gets the 10-foot ladder, and all right, the distance between the base and the wall, we don't know what that is, right? Because it says about how far away from the wall should she place the base. So this distance right here from the base of the 10-foot ladder to the wall, I'm just going to call that x because we don't know what it equals, all right? So what we can do essentially is we can write this out. We can say 7 over 4 equals 10 over x. Okay, and all we have to do is solve this for x, and that's going to tell us the distance from the base of the ladder to the wall when she's using that 10-foot ladder. All right, so in this case here, since we see an equal sign, we can do cross multiplication. All right, so we can take this x, we can multiply it by 7. And likewise, we can take this 4 and multiply it by 10. And that's going to give us 7x equals 40. All right, now sometimes people, let me show you this here. All right, and again, I know sometimes people get, they don't like it when I, try to explain something into too much depth during a problem. But again, I would rather give you more instruction than you need than leave important stuff out. Because this is probably the biggest mistake I've ever seen people make when I did tutoring in person. When you're given a scenario like this, all right, 7 over 4 times 10 over x, you cannot cross multiply here. All right, if you try to cross multiply here, it's going to mess this entire thing up. All right, so if the numbers are on the same side of that equal sign, do not try to cross multiply. The way you would do this is you would just do 7 times 10, which is 70, and 4 times x, which is 4x, all right? Now, that's not what the problem is here. I'm just showing you because people get very, very, very confused about cross multiplication, all right? I've seen a lot of people do this, and this isn't just GED test takers, all right? In general, like in my everyday life, whenever a situation where multiplying fractions comes up, which actually that's only happened a couple times in my life, but in those few cases, all right, I've seen people who otherwise should have known better try to cross multiply here. So just know if the fractions are on the same side of the equal side, don't try to cross multiply. It's going to mess the whole thing up, all right? But in a case like this right here, where you've got 7 over 4 equals 10 over x, see how these are on opposite sides of the equal sign. We've got 7 over 4 over here to the left of the equal sign. We've got 10 over x over here to the right of the equal sign. All right, in this case, you can cross multiply. So that's how I have 7 times x equals 40, all right? So I'm sorry if you're, disappointed in that rant and you think it just took up too much time. I do apologize for that. Sincerely, I can understand why that would be frustrating, but, again, I would rather give you too much information than you need. I'd rather give you more information than not enough. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to divide by 7 on both sides here to get x by itself. And we figure out that x equals 5.71, and that corresponds to answer choice A. All right, so if you got this question right, really good job. If not, good job for trying.
Question 8 refers to the following information. The graphs below show the total value in US dollars of the imports and exports of country W with its only 3 trade partners, countries X, Y, and Z in a recent year. So here are the value of the imports, and here's the value of the exports. Now it says what percent of country W's total imports was from country X. Now I apologize if you're on a phone or a small tablet if you can't see this that clearly. I know the text is small. I really couldn't figure out a way to make it any bigger, so I do apologize for that. But let me give you a chance to pause the video, try this question out, and then when you're ready, we'll go over how to do it. Okay, so this question right here goes back to that whole concept of the part over the whole, okay? The part over the whole equals percent over 100, okay? Percent over 100. And we're trying to figure out the percent, all right? So in our formula here, we want to figure out what this percent is. So right off the bat, I can take an x and just plug it in here for the percent because we don't know what that is, all right? And it doesn't have to be an x. You can use a, b, c, y. It doesn't really matter. You can leave it as the percent sign if you want. Just know that we're ultimately trying to figure out what the percent is, okay? So since we're asked what percent of the total imports, we want to come over here and we want to add up all of the different imports, all right? Get a total. So it says dollars and millions over here. So country X, it says 40 million. So for country X, I'm going to do 40. All right, so now let's look at the value of imports for country Y. So that corresponds to 80. All right, and I know if you're on a small screen device, this might be hard to see, so I do apologize for that. Did my best to fit it all on the screen in a way that would make sense, but unfortunately with 2 graphs, it's kind of hard to do. So for country Z, we see that the value of country Z's imports is also 40, okay? So to figure out the whole, we're just adding up country X, country Y, country Z to get the total value of the imports. So 40 plus 80 plus 40 is 160, all right? And yes, I did that with a calculator before I started recording. I didn't just do that in my head. So basically, for the whole, we're going to put in 160. All right. The whole value of the imports, we just added that up and got 160. Now, what do I put in the formula for the part? Well, it says we want to figure out the percent of country W's total imports from country X. So I just come back to country X, and we see that we've got 40 right here. So I'm just going to take that 40 and plug it in for the part. So if I rewrite the formula, I've got 40 over 160 equals X over 100. All right, and so I need to figure out what this X equals. So if I have X divided by 100, and I want to get X by itself, what move am I going to make? Well, I'm going to multiply by 100, all right, because the hundreds will then cancel out. But whatever I do to one side, I also have to do it to the other side, all right? So now, and you're free to crunch the numbers in your calculator, but if I do 100 times 40 divided by 160, the answer is 25.
So it's time for Champion Facts, and I feel like sometimes when I'm teaching, I'm kind of behind the whiteboard for most of the video, so I think this is a good segment for me to pop out behind the whiteboard and maybe get to know each other a little bit better here. So I'm going to answer some random questions from a this or that question generator I found online. Hopefully none of them are too awkward, I don't know yet, and you can let me know down below if you agree with my answers or if you disagree with my answers, or if you don't care and you want me to not include these segments in future videos. Let me know down below. I'm open to all opinions. Press the button to generate a random this or that question. Okay, hopefully I don't regret doing these. This could get kind of awkward. Geometry or algebra? Wow, this is really appropriate. I'm going to go algebra. I don't really like geometry that much, and I think a lot of people, when they're studying for the GED, they kind of focus more on the algebra than the geometry, although everybody's different, but I'm going to go algebra. Sauce on the side or sauce on top? You know what? I'd have to say sauce on the side, and then you can just dip whatever you're eating in. You know, if you're ketchup, whatever, you got French fries, and then is ketchup a sauce? I think it is a sauce, yeah. Why am I not sure if ketchup is a sauce? I don't know. Football game or basketball game? To watch, I would say football, although, yeah, I'd say football because my favorite team, which is Pitt, University of Pittsburgh, got eliminated from March Madness, so I'm definitely not going basketball.
An artist has all her paintings framed with a 3-inch wide border. She has a painting to be framed that is 1 foot by 1.5 feet. Which of the following measurements represents the perimeter of the painting with the border? So you know the drill by now. If you'd like to, you can pause the video, try to work this problem out, and then when you're ready, we'll go over the answer here. Okay, so basically the way that you do this question, and I'm sure someone missed this, maybe you missed this, and that's okay if you did. All right, we are working in different units here. All right, so this is 3 inches, this is feet. The answer choices are all in feet here. So really, the inches here, all right, I want to kind of put these into feet first. All right, so if you missed that, don't worry about it. All right, I'm just explaining it right now. All right, so 12 inches equals 1 foot. Okay, so if 12 inches equals 1 foot, all right, 6 inches is going to equal half a foot, all right, or 0.5 feet. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense so far. So if we look at just this side right here, okay, if we look at this side right here, we would see that to get the total for this side, we would do 1 foot plus 3 inches plus 3 inches. Now, 3 inches plus 3 inches is 6 inches, which is equal to half a foot. All right, so this whole entire side right here, all of this, if we put this all in feet, it's 1.5 feet. All right. Again, 3 inches plus 3 inches is equal to half a foot. All right. Half a foot plus this 1 foot is 1.5 feet. So this entire portion right here, in other words, the width, is 1.5 feet. All right. And we can do the same thing with this side down here. All right. Or the length. Okay. This side down here, we can do the same thing. We've got 1.5 feet. Plus 3 inches plus 3 inches. Now, 3 inches plus 3 inches equals 6 inches, which equals 0.5 feet. 1.5 feet plus 0.5 is equal to 2 feet. All right. So basically, in order to get the perimeter, you'd want to do 2 length plus 2 width. Or you can just think about it as adding all the sides up. It doesn't really matter how to think about it. But anyway, we figured out that the length is 2 feet. So we could do 2 times 2 plus 2 times 1.5, which is our width. Okay, and if you do this right, 2 times 2 equals 4, 2 times 1.5 equals 3, 4 plus 3 equals 7. So the answer after all of this is 7 feet. All right, so again, as a recap here, all you had to do was you had to figure out the length of the sides here of the border. Okay, we have 3 inches plus 1 foot plus 3 inches. We had to put the 3 inches into feet first. All right, and we did that, and we used the formula for perimeter, and we got 7 as our answer.
It takes 1 bag of chocolate chips to make 72 cookies. How many bags does it take to make 18 dozen cookies? So let's have you pause the video, try this out if you want to, and then when you're ready, we'll go over how to do it. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do here, this says 18 dozen. 1 dozen is 12. So if I just do 12 times 18, all right, 12 times 18 gets me 216. All right, so the first thing I wanted to do here is figure out what is 18 dozen really equal to, and that is 216. All right, so that's going to help us out a little bit. Now, we're told that 1 bag of chocolate chips makes 72 cookies. All right, so I can set up the following equation. All right, we've got 1 over 72 equals some amount of bags, right, which we don't know yet, over 216. Okay, so again, 1 bag of chocolate chips makes 72 cookies, and we want to know how many bags it takes to make 216 cookies. All right, so I set up this relationship right here, and if I want to get B by itself, if I have B divided by 216, what am I going to do? Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply by 216. If I multiply by 216, these are going to cancel out. And whatever I do to one side, I also have to do it to the other side. All right, so 216 divided by 72 is 3. So the answer here is 3.
Each time a coin is flipped, it has a 50% chance of landing on heads and a 50% chance of landing on tails. The coin will be flipped 3 times. What is the probability it will land on tails all 3 times? So you know the drill by now. Thank you so much for sticking with me. Let's have you pause the video if you want to. Try this out, and then when you're ready, just unpause the video and we'll talk about it. So if I flip a coin 3 times, all right, on my first flip, the chance that I get tails is half. It's 50%. On my second flip, the chance that I get tails is going to be half. And also on my third try, there's a 50% chance or half a chance that I get tails, all right? Now, if on my first 2 tries I get heads, the chance of me getting tails on my third try is still 50%, all right? So in other words, each time I flip the coin, the outcome is independent of all the other attempts. So in other words, all we have to do here is multiply half times half times half. All right, and in this case here, all we do when we're multiplying fractions is we just multiply the top numbers and the bottom numbers. So 1 times 1 times 1 is just 1. Now 2 times 2 is 4, times another 2 is 8. And just like that, we see that answer choice A is the correct answer here.
An electronics store offers to finance the purchase of any single item with 0 interest for 1 year with a down payment of $60. The rest of the purchase price will be split evenly into 4 quarterly payments. Which of the following equations represents the relationship between the amount A dollars of each quarterly payment and the purchase price S dollars of an item under this offer? Is it A, B, C, or D? So let's have you pause the video, try to figure this out, and then when you're ready, we'll go over the answer. So let's use me for an example here. So let's say I go to an electronics store and let's say I'm buying a PS5 because I want to play the new Silent Hill 2 remake whenever it comes out. That was one of my favorite games for the PS2 back in the day. And so let's say I go to buy a PS5 and the price tag says that it costs S dollars. All right, it costs S dollars. And I don't want to pay S today. I don't want to pay the full amount today. All I want to do is put a $60 down payment on it. All right, so S minus 60 would represent the total amount I'd have left to pay on that PlayStation 5. All right. And if I'm splitting the payments up into 4 quarterly payments, which it says right here, that would mean that I would divide this by 4. All right. So in other words, again, if the cost of a PS5 is equal to S and I pay $60 on it, the amount that I would have left to pay would be would be S minus 60. And if I'm splitting it up into 4 quarterly payments, I would just divide by 4. And A is the correct answer here. So hopefully this makes sense. Let g of x equal x squared minus 1. What is the average rate of change of the function from x equals 3 to x equals 6? So let's have you pause the video, try this question out, and then when you're ready, we'll go over how to do it. So this question right here seems like this would be a good candidate for the Champions Challenge question. And so I say this because right now I'm not finished filming the whole video, so I'm not sure if there's going to be a question that I think is harder than this one yet or not. So if you just watched a little blurb of me explaining the Champions Challenge question, then it turns out that I did pick this one as the Champions Challenge, and then when I edited, I put a little note about that, explaining what that is before this video clip. And if one of the other questions ended up being the Champions Challenge, then you'll see that little video clip before that question. But anyway, the question at hand is, this is the hardest one so far, in my opinion, because you have to know several things to even have a chance to get this right. So the first thing you have to know is that the average rate of change is just another way of saying slope, simply put. So average rate of change is the slope. And to calculate the slope, you have to do y2 minus y1 divided by x2 minus x1. So we can look at these x's right here, and we can say x equals 3. Let's say that that is x1. And this x equals 6. Let me say that that is my x2. Okay. So we know that we can come to this formula, and we can plug 6 in for x2, and we can plug 3 in for x1. But how are we going to get the y's? Well, the good news is that g of x is equal to y. Okay, g of x equals y. And sometimes they'll write f of x instead of g of x, but g of x or f of x, whatever they write, that's just another fancy way of saying y. So if I take this x1 value, which is x equals 3, and if I replace x squared, if I replace this x with 3, all right, and if I do 3 squared minus 1, that's going to give me my y1. And the same with this x2. If I plug 6 in here for x and crunch the numbers, that's going to get me my y2. All right? So just to explain the strategy here. So hopefully you're with me so far. If you don't understand so far, I would encourage you to just rewind back to the start of this question and just try to follow it, because the strategy really is important to understand here. All right, this isn't just about getting this one question right and getting the answer to this one question. It's about really understanding, the concepts and the strategy behind this question so you can apply it to other similar questions. All right, with that said, how are we going to find y1? So for y1, what we do is let's take this x1, which is 3, and I'm going to plug it into the formula in place of x. All right, so instead of x squared minus 1, I'm going to do 3 squared minus 1. All right, so 3 squared is equal to 9. 9 minus 1 is equal to 8. So y1 equals 8. Okay? And we're going to do the same thing here. So to get y2, it's the same idea. So I'm going to take my x2, which is 6. I'm going to take this 6, and I'm going to put it into the formula in place of the x here. So y2 equals 6 squared. My handwriting is really bad. Sorry about that. So 6 squared minus 1. All right, now 6 squared is equal to 36. Minus 1 would be 35. So we're almost in business here. We just have to do the slope calculation and crunch the numbers here, and we're going to be home free. So basically, if I want to do y2 minus y1, all right, what number is my y2? Well, that is 35. All right, and what is my y1? Well, we found that that is 8. All right. And I have to divide this by x2 minus x1. So my x2 is 6, and my x1 is 3. All right, so we just crunch some numbers in the calculator. We do 35 minus 8, which is 27. 6 minus 3 is 3, and 27 minus 3 brings us in for a landing with 9. So 9 is the correct answer here. So if you got this right, really, really good job. If you didn't get this right and you struggled with it, good job for trying. Hopefully this question makes sense to you now after you've seen the explanation. A lighting designer created a program for the opening of a stage show. When the show starts, 10 lights are on. Every 30 seconds, one more light comes on. If T is time in minutes and L is the number of lights that are on, which function best models the number of lights that are on after T minutes of the stage show? So let's have you pause the video, try this one out, and then when you're ready, we'll go over how to do it. Okay, so this question is actually deceptively kind of tricky. So L is the number of lights. So we're going to start the equation by saying L equals something. All right, and basically, we know that right at the start of the show, there are 10 lights on. Okay, and every 30 seconds, we know that one more light comes on. All right, and so if every 30 seconds, one light comes on, that means that every minute, there's going to be 2 lights. All right, so if for 30 seconds, that's equal to 1 light coming on, or 1 L. Then if we double that to 60 seconds, which is equal to a minute, all right, that means that 2 lights will come on each minute. And we don't know how many minutes there are. So for minutes, we just write a T, all right? So really, we would say, we don't know how many minutes there are, but we know that for each minute, 2 lights turn on, all right? So if this is like a 20-minute time period, we would do 20 times 2, all right? And then add that 10 for the original 10 lights on, for example, all right? And that would show us the number of lights that were on after 20 minutes, for example, all right? So I just picked that 20, if we could do 5 minutes, right? So how many lights would be on after 5 minutes? Well, you would do 10 because there's 10 on at the start, plus 2 times 5, and that would tell you the number of lights on after 5 minutes, for example. All right, so in other words, B is the correct answer here, all right? And this is actually a harder question, so if you have trouble with this, don't worry. This is actually a pretty tricky question.
A radio station ordered hats and coffee mugs to give away as prizes. A total of 1,000 of these items were ordered, and 3 times as many coffee mugs were ordered as hats. In which equation does H represent the number of hats ordered? Is it A, B, C, D, or E? So now would be a good time to pause the video, try to figure this out, and then when you're ready, we'll go over how to do the question. Okay, so basically, we've got a total of 1,000 items ordered, all right? Now, out of these items, there are hats and coffee mugs. So there's 1,000 items total that were ordered, all right? And we can get the total by adding the hats and the coffee mugs, all right? Now, in this case, we're told that 3 times as many coffee mugs were ordered as hats. So the total number of coffee mugs ordered is equal to 3 times the number of hats. So in other words, C equals 3H. So all I have to do is go to this equation here, and I'm going to replace C with 3H. Okay? So if I rewrite this, I have 1,000 equals H plus 3H. All right, and 1,000 then, if I simplify this, H plus 3H equals 4H. So I've got 1,000 equals 4H. Now, if I have 4 times H and I just want H, what do I do? Well, if it's 4 times H, I do the opposite of times, which is division. So if I divide 4 by one side, I also have to divide by 4 on the other side. These 4's cancel out, and I'm left with 1,000 divided by 4 equals H. So E is the right answer here. Hopefully that makes sense.
So this next question is, in my opinion, the hardest question in this entire video, so I'm picking it as this video's Champions Challenge question. So if you're feeling brave and you want to lay it all on the line, actually you don't have to lay anything on the line. You can just try the question here, see how it goes for you, and I'll let you try it right now. Jenna bought some apples for $1.25 per pound and some avocados for $4 per pound. Altogether, she spent $14.25 for 7 pounds of apples and avocados. What is the total number of pounds of avocados Jenna bought? So let's have you pause the video, try to figure this out, and then when you're ready, we'll go over the answer. Okay, so first we want to start off by writing two different equations. So the first one is A plus B equals 7. And if you're wondering, where does this come from? What's the A? What's the B? Well, let me show you. It tells us she got 7 pounds of apples and avocados. All right, so that's why I wrote this A plus V equals 7, where A stands for apples and the V stands for the avocados. Okay, so that's our first equation. So let me call this here equation 1. Now, let's write the second equation. So the second equation is going to look like this. We'll have 1.25A plus 4V. Because it says here she bought some apples for $1.25 per pound and avocados for $4 per pound. Okay. And then also we're going to have set this equal to 14.25. Okay. So we've got two different equations here. And we ultimately want to know what is the total number of pounds of avocados. So what I'm going to do, and this is one of those kind of pick your own adventure or really pick your own disaster questions, I guess, because this question is kind of a pain. But basically, the way I would do this here is I would take equation 1, and I would solve equation 1 for A. Okay, then I'm going to substitute that into equation 2 here. So that way I have one variable only to work with. So you might be thinking, what in the world does that mean? So let me show you. So let's take equation 1. And very simple, we're going to start off by solving this equation for A. And if you're wondering, what does that mean, solve the equation for A? Well, it means we want to get A by itself on both sides. So if I have A plus V, all right, to get the A by itself, I want to subtract the V. And my V's will cancel out. But whatever I do to one side, I also have to do it to the other side. All right, so my equation 1 is now A equals 7 minus V. All right, so right here is my new equation 1. A equals 7 minus V. So now I'm going to come down here to equation 2. And in place of the A, I'm going to write in 7 minus V. Okay. So let me rewrite 2 now. So I'll have 1.25 times 7 minus V plus 4V equals 14.25. Okay, so now this 1.25, what I'm going to do is I'm going to distribute this. And like I said, it's fair game to use a calculator. All right, so 1.25 times 7. So first I'm going to multiply that, 1.25 times 7, which in my calculator here, I get 8.75. So now I'm going to take this 1.25 and I'm also going to multiply it by V. But I have to remember this minus sign here. So I have 8.75 minus 1.25V, and then the rest just comes along for the ride. So plus 4V equals 14.25. So hopefully you're with me so far. If not, it wouldn't hurt to maybe rewind the video and just rewatch this so that you understand how I got to this step. And like I said before, you might have solved this a little bit differently because there's different ways to approach this. Okay, but if you were completely stuck, this is, in my opinion, probably the easiest way to go about this. And if you have an easier way to solve this question, let me know down below in the comments. But what I'm doing right now is I'm now going to subtract 8.75 from both sides of the equation. Okay, so the 8.75s are going to cancel out from the left. And whatever I do to one side, I also have to do it to the other side as well. Okay, so I'm now going to be left with negative 1.25v plus 4v equals 5.5. All right, so now I have to add, you could think of this like you're subtracting 4 minus 1.25, or you could just put in your calculator negative 1.25 plus 4. It's going to give you the same answer either way. Okay, but that answer is, to this, it's going to be 2.75v equals 5.5. Okay, so let me see if I can grab this right here. Perfect. Bring it up here where we have a little bit more room. So we're down to this point right here, 2.75v equals 5.5. So if I have 2.75v and I just want to get v, what do I have to do? Well, it's 2.75 times v, so I'm going to have to divide by 2.75. And if I do that, these will cancel out and I'm left with v. But whatever I do to one side, I also have to do it to the other side. Okay, so then in my calculator, I'm going to do 5.5 divided by 2.75. That's going to equal 2. All right, so all that work that I just did tells me ultimately that v equals 2. Okay. So there's a couple things I want to break down here. So hopefully you saw how I got that, all right? But let me show you. I'm going to clear all this work out of the way. So if you wanted to see that, then hopefully you don't mind rewinding a little bit to look at that again. But basically, let's go back to this first step here, all right? Because you might be wondering, well, what would happen if instead I solve this equation for v? Okay, what if I solve this equation for v? So let's do that. So if I would have done it like this, v equals 7 minus a. Okay, then I would plug this v in here in place of v. Okay, and you would do all of this work, and what would happen is you eventually, if you do all the math right, you're going to get a equals some number. All right, so I don't know what it would be. A equals, I have no idea off the top of my head because I didn't do the calculation, but a is going to equal some number. Let's say it's z. All right, and then you would have to take that value and you'd have to come back up here and you'd have to substitute that number into the equation for a, and then you'd solve it for v to get v. Okay, so if you started this way, if you solved this equation right here for v and plugged v in, all right, you can still eventually get the right answer that way. It just takes a little bit longer. All right, so 2 is the right answer here. Khaled is 56 years old. Kathleen is 6 years older than Brody. The sum of Kathleen's and Brody's ages is half Khaled's age. How old is Kathleen? So now would be a good time to pause the video, try to figure this out, and as always, we'll go over it. So don't worry if you get stuck or if you think you have the right answer, we're just going to go over it either way. Okay, so really this question here is, the first step is to really write equations based off of what the word says. So the word is often going to be a keyword for an equal sign. So let me show you what I mean. So the first bit of information here, we see Khaled is 56 years old. So the equation that we can write based off of this is k equals 56. Okay, so then let's go on to the next sentence. So the next sentence says Kathleen is 6 years older than Brody. So let's put a C for Kathleen, and let's say that Kathleen's age is equal to Brody's plus 6, because it says Kathleen is 6 years older than Brody. All right. Now, it says here, the sum of Kathleen's and Brody's ages is half Khaled's age. So for this, we can write the equation k divided by 2, right? Because half of Khaled would be Khaled divided by 2. So k divided by 2 equals c plus b. So right off the bat, there are 3 equations that we can write out here. Okay, and each of these kind of hold a piece of the puzzle, and we're going to put them all together, and if you do it right, then you'll get the whole puzzle solved. Okay, So the first thing that I would do here, and this is also kind of like a choose your own adventure because there's different ways to do it. I guess this could be a choose your own disaster potentially if you get a question like this on the test and you don't know how to do it. But the first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to take this k equals 56, and I'm going to put this 56 in place of k. All right, so let me rewrite the third equation here. So 56 divided by 2 equals c plus b. All right, and so 56 divided by 2 equals 28. Okay, so 28 equals c plus b. So ultimately, what are we trying to solve for here? Are we trying to solve for c, or are we trying to solve for b? Well, ultimately, we really want to know what c is, okay, because we want to know how old Kathleen is. So let's go back up here. So equation 1, k equals 56, we pretty much used up all the information we can from that. And so let's look at this equation here where it says c equals b plus 6. Now, what you could do is you could come down here into this equation and you could replace c with b plus 6. And if you do that and solve for b, okay, you're going to get Brody's age. And then once you get Brody's age, you can use that to get Kathleen's age, all right? But I want to do it a little bit of a quick way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this c equals b plus 6, and I'm going to solve this equation for b, all right? And so if I do that, it's going to look like this. C minus 6 equals b. Okay, so all I did was I have the c equals b plus 6. I subtract 6 from both sides and get c minus 6 equals b. Okay. Now, this step here is going to make this process a little bit faster. All right, but like I said, this isn't the only way to do the question. Because now what I want to do, I know that c minus 6 equals b. So I want to take this c minus 6 and plug it in down here for b. Okay. So when I rewrite, it'll look like this. It'll look like 28 equals c plus c minus 6. Okay. And we can simplify this even further. So I have c plus c, which would be 2c. And this minus 6, what I'm going to do is to get rid of that, I'm going to add 6 to both sides of the equation. Okay. So I'm going to add 6 to both sides. So basically, if I rewrite this, I will have 34 equals 2c. Okay? And now what I want to do is if I have 2 times c and I want to get c, what do? Well, I divide by 2. And whatever I do to one side, I also have to do it to the other side as well. So 34 divided by 2 is 17. So in the end, we're going to figure out that 17 equals c. So 17 is the correct answer here. All right, so let me just show you what happens though if we do this the other way. All right, so if we go this way, let me just show you what happens here. So we have 28 equals c plus b. All right, now if I just take this c equals b plus 6, if I plug that in here for c, okay, watch how this kind of changes the game here. All right, so if I do that, I would then have 28 equals b plus 6 plus b. Okay, so my move here is I'm going to now do b plus b, which is 2b. And in this case, I'm going to subtract 6 from both sides of the equation. All right, because it's b plus 6. So if I have 28 minus 6, that would be 22. All right, so I would have 22 equals 2b. Okay, and so I have 2b, or 2 times b, so what I would do is divide 2 by 2 on both sides. And what that would tell me is that 11 equals b. But we're only partway through, so if you did the problem this way and you got answer choice E, I'm guessing that's because you got to this step here and then you stopped and you thought 11 was the right answer. if you got this far, then you did a really good job by figuring this out, but we have to go one more step. All right, so we have to take this 11, we have to come back up here and we have to plug it into this equation for B. All right, so we would then have C equals 11 plus 6. 11 plus 6 is 17. So that's just a different way to figure out that C equals 17. There's just an extra step if you do it that way. But either way, D is the right answer here.
Okay, the next question says, a newspaper published the table below. It shows a sample of the daily wages paid by 5 local factories. Each factory reported the wages of 5 workers. What is the median daily wage reported by factory D? So now would be a good time to pause the video, try to figure this out, and then when you're ready, we'll go over the answer. Okay, so to find the median, what we have to do, it says we want to know the median for factory D. So here is factory D, and we have to start by taking these numbers, and we have to put them in order from smallest to largest first. Okay, so that's the most crucial step that I often see people forget with the median, is you have to put the numbers in order from smallest to largest before you do anything else. A lot of people remember the word median has something to do with the middle number, but again, you have to put them in order from smallest to largest before that's going to come into play. Okay, so again, median is the middle number, but you have to put the numbers in order from smallest to largest first. All right, so I'll keep saying that over and over and over again because I want that to sink in, because you're probably going to come up against at least one question that has to do with the median at some point on your test. Okay, because mean, median, mode, and range is fair game for not just math, but also science and even social studies. So to find the median, take all the numbers, put them in order from smallest to largest, and then we're going to find the middle number. So all I did was I took the numbers here under factory D, and I put them in order here from smallest to largest, and I'm simply going to pick out the middle number. Okay, so again, the key to median questions is you take the numbers, put them in order from smallest to largest, and find the middle number. So B is the right answer here. Okay, so this next question is still using the same data in that table, and the question says, the worker at factory A who made $180 per day received a raise and now makes $195 per day. If this value were changed in the table, how much would the average wage increase for factory A as a result of this raise? So let's have you pause the video. As always, try to figure this out, and then when you're ready, we'll go over it. Okay, so basically, the first thing I want to do here is take the values of factory A, and let's figure out what the average was before the one worker got the raise. So to find the average, what we need to do is we need to take all the numbers here in our data set, and we're going to add them all up, and then we're going to count up how many numbers we have in our data set and divide by that. Okay, and if you're like, what in the heck does that mean? Don't worry, I'm about to show you. All right, but first, we're going to just take all of the numbers here under factory A, and we're going to add them up. Okay, and I believe there's 5 workers total here, right? There's 5 values. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah. So I'm going to divide by 5. Okay, so let me crunch this in my calculator here. So 140 plus 160 plus 200 plus 190 plus 180 divided by 5 equals 174. Okay, so the average wage was 174 before the guy that was making 180 per day received the raise. So now this time, this guy right here who is making 180 starts making 195 a day. So we have to now add all of these up, okay? But instead of 180, we're going to do 195. So what I'm going to do here, in the first case, the average was 174. So let me leave that here. And so let me delete this. And this number right here that says 180, this time all we're going to do is we're going to change that to 195. All right, so again, in the first case, we added up all of these numbers and divided by 5. The second case, we're going to add up all the numbers, except instead of adding 180, we're going to add 195. Okay, and we're still dividing by 5 here. All right, so let me add these up in my calculator, and let's see what we get. All right, so this time in the second case, I got 177. I got 177. Okay, so now what you would do is you would subtract them. 177 minus 174. And the answer to this is 3. So the overall final answer is A. So hopefully this makes sense. Lydia and Claudia have the same number of charms in their collections. Lydia started with 6 charms and bought 3 more packs. Claudia started with 9 charms and bought 2 more packs. If each pack had 6 charms, which equation can be used, if each pack had X charms, which equation can be used to find X? So let's have you pause the video, try to figure this out, and then we'll go over how to do it. Okay, so basically here, the way that we would do this, it says Lydia started with 6 charms and bought 3 more packs. So we have L equals 6 for the 6 charms, plus 3 more packs. And it says if each pack has X charms. So I'm going to do 6 plus 3X. All right, so we've got 6 for the 6 charms that she starts with. Then she buys 3 more packs, and we don't know how many charms are in each pack, so that's why we put an X. It also tells us here each pack has X charms. So hopefully this makes sense. We've got L equals 6 plus 3X. Now we also have C equals 9 for the 9 charms that Claudia starts with, plus her 2 more packs, so plus 2X. And it tells us that Lydia and Claudia have the same number of charms in their collections. So all we have to do now is take both equations and we have to set them equal to each other. Okay, so 6 plus 3x equals 9 plus 2x. And again, that's because it tells us in the first sentence that they both have the same number of charms in their collection. So they kind of wrote it a little bit differently, but if you look at E, they wrote 3x plus 6. I have here 6 plus 3x, which is the same thing, equals 9 plus 2x. And down here, they just put the 2x first. They put 2x plus 9 first. So same exact thing, they just wrote it a little bit differently, but E is the correct answer here.